And Mark, we are going to move right into the second team of the division. They were the wild card team. Season didn't end quite like they wanted to, losing to the Green Bay Football Packers in their game in Lambeau. OBJ was a wee bit upset in that game. But the thing I want to start with the New York Football Giants, so not the ones that play baseball, the ones that play football, is a guy that we mentioned in the Redskin preview, and that is Brandon Marshall. Two guys that they added to this receiving core that I think are great. Number one, Brandon Marshall. So now you have OBJ and Brandon Marshall, Sterling Shepard as your number 3, also Roger Lewis there. But they also draft Evan Ingram from Ole Miss to be their starting tight end, who will now be over Jarrell Adams and Will Tye. So they're getting Marshall in the veteran category, and they're adding Ingram in the tight end category.
So they definitely are kind of making that splash. I think they saw last year that if OBJ isn't having a good game out there,
they're screwed. Yeah,
I mean, and Sterling Shepard did great. We're not going to take anything away from him. He was a very nice, pleasant surprise. But the thing for this team is they saw that we have this high-powered, well, it's supposed to be a high-powered offense with Ben McAdoo. We got Eli Manning, who's, very good quarterback, won himself a couple Super Bowls. Some would say very fluky, but he's won a couple Super Bowls. That's what matters. And, you know that the New England Patriots just might be in a Super Bowl again this year, so you can win if you play the Patriots. Yeah. But anyways, you got this walking highlight reel that is Odell. You now want to get a very reliable, safe weapon that is Brandon Marshall, who can still take it deep, who can just reach above the defender. Sterling Shepard there, you get the tight end. This is doing a lot, and this is a team that also went out and tried to find some running help as well at the running back position. So this is a team that's saying, we got the defense, we've got pieces on offense, we just need a couple more, and then we can really find our way and maybe get another Super Bowl.
Well, and I'm going to ask you a question that right now I'm looking at from Big Blue View, and that is the Giants SB Nation site. They have an article up where it's previewing the 90-man roster, and they have a question. And I'm going to just ask you this question, see what you think.
All right.
Can Paul Perkins carry the load for New York? Because he was the guy late last year that we saw. It was the last 4 games of the season. He got 15, 11, 15, and 21 attempts in those games. That last game against the Redskins on New Year's Day, had the over 100-yard game in that final game. Right now, he's listed as the number 1. Can he carry the load for the Giants in the backfield?
Well, I don't expect anybody to be carrying the load. I do expect a little bit more running back by committee. He probably will get the most carries because he performed well at the end. But really, nothing about this running game was that great last year, or even really good last year, if we're going to be completely honest. This team just overall did not score points. Whether it was Eli Manning, whether it was Odell and Shepard, whether it's the run game, nobody was performing at the level they should and they need to perform at for this team to be the Super Bowl contender that they were put on paper to be. They are supposed to be a Super Bowl contender, and they definitely didn't put up what they needed to. Eli Manning's got to bounce back after a rough year. This, one of the worst running games last year, needs to come back strong. And this team just didn't score very many points last year. I mean, it really comes down to being that simple. Which you don't score points, you don't win. Thank you, John Madden.
Which I know people are going to say, but guys, this was a team that only lost 5 games last year. But if I'm looking at their wins, I'm going to just run through their win totals of just their wins. You ready for it?
Let's do
20-19.
Okay.
16-13. 27-23, 17-10, 28-23, 21-20, 22-16, 27-13, 10-7, 17-6, 19-10. You know what that tells me? Your defense was pretty damn good last year.
They were.
Your defense was, as we would say in Jim Rome sayings, phenomenal. That's what your defense was. If your offense could put up more points, you might have been able to get it when the defense could not get it done because Aaron Rodgers kind of went off. Like when the Packers score 38 points on you and Rodgers works his Hail Mary magic, I kind of look at that and go, he got the better of you. He's got the better of you. And that wasn't the only time that Aaron Rodgers, that postseason, worked some Hail Mary-esque magic.
Yeah.
He did it against your rival in the Cowboys as well.
And to me, this team was so hyped offensively with this Ben McAdoo offense. That was a huge deal. I mean, getting rid of Tom Coughlin for Ben McAdoo to rise up and lead Eli Manning to his promised land for the third time, it was supposed to be a slam dunk. It was supposed to be easy. This team really, I mean, you still look at Eli Manning and you see over, 4,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, and you feel pretty good about that. Unfortunately, you also see Eli Manning being a classic Eli Manning that we all kind of joke about and throwing a shit ton of interceptions. And, part of you is going to say that's what the guy does. He's going to throw, 15, 16 interceptions in a year. But that's not good enough. I mean, he's got to do better than that. I mean, Eli Manning has only once thrown less than 10 interceptions in a season, and that was his rookie year, only playing 9 games. So he's going to make those dumb mistakes. The defense can't be expected to bail him out every single time.
Let me put it this way, and for the other teams that we've had, I've mentioned the schedule coming in, especially the early schedule coming into this year. I look at their first 7 games, Mark, and I can visualize a 5-2 start potentially for this team. To me, the only tough games are at Dallas week 1, home against Seattle in week 7, with that Philly game being the Philly and Tampa are like, okay, those might be, I think they can beat Detroit on Monday night, although Detroit has surprised me in the past. And then the Chargers and Denver, I'm not really that worried about if I am the Giants. This team, if they want to do well this season to me, has to be 5-2 or better in their first 7 games. Because I look at those first 7, how many divisional games do they have? 2. They play the Cowboys and the Eagles. So if you can jump out to that 5-2 because of, like I've said, with how close I expect these divisional games to be, in case you are upset by Washington, upset by the Eagles later in the season, if you split with Dallas, because the Dallas game later on will be at home, you can afford to give up a game or two there because you started out the season so well. So to me, the Giants, if they want to do well this season, you got to come out like a bottle rocket and be ready to be successful right from the word go. You can't kind of meander or kind of jog or crawl into the season.
Well, this offense definitely needs to perform better than they have in the past. And last year's just seemed kind of like a slump because the 2 years before that, Eli Manning's had this offense with Ben McAdoo running phenomenally. So it's just, hopefully for Giants fans, it's just an off year and they get it going again and they get back to it. The surprise was that the running game was not good at all. And I think that was a big detriment to the passing game as well, because you really can't only have one, unless you're someone like Aaron Rodgers who can do whatever the hell he wants. You can't only have one. You really do need to have both working well, or at least one of them working average for the other one to work great. And this team, if they want to compete, because we've been saying it all night.
Well, your goal is
podcast,
to beat
everyone is going to be good this in this division.
Your goal is to beat the Cowboys, and by beat the Cowboys, I mean,
well, you already did that last year.
Finish ahead of them. And I'm going to ask you this question: at the end of the year, what is the percentage that you see the Giants winning this division over the Dallas Cowboys? Because let's be honest, I know we're not giving our predictions until later this offseason, but let's be completely honest. Neither of us are probably going to pick the Redskins and the Eagles fans to win the division. We're not going to pick those two teams to win the division. They could. They have a possibility.
Everyone has a chance.
But I don't think neither you or I are actually going to push that button. What's the percentage that the Giants dethrone Dak and Zeke this year?
Well, I liked the Giants last year, and I like them again this year. I think that the problem was really just the run game not performing at all led to a lot of issues on the offense. And then the offense also found that they need another weapon out there to complement Odell. So I think they did a lot of fixing what was wrong in the offseason. It's just a matter of seeing if it performs in the regular season. Fortunately for them, Brandon Marshall's always good the first year he's on a team. So they got that going for him. I definitely think they have a strong chance. I mean, I think a lot of it's going to come more down to Dallas coming back down to earth a little bit than the New York Giants completely unseating them, because 11-5 is a great record. I give like a 60% chance. I'm not super sold on it, but I'm leaning more towards it happening than it not happening.
The one player that I look at, and it's basically from the point that you said where last year was the running game didn't do enough, I come into this season thinking almost the same thing. I don't think Paul Perkins can be the one to carry the load this season. It has to be a committee thing. I don't think Shane Vereen is a guy for the answer either, but one guy I'm going to be excited for this season to see how he plays is a rookie. Of course, Ricky always likes his rookies on teams, but I look at Wayne Gallman, the running back from Clemson, and I look at him and I go, I want to see, A, how you transfer to the NFL, but number two, is this going to be your rookie year where you, at the end of it, we say, okay, they got something special in Wayne Gallman? Or are they going to say, well, fuck that, we had no running back that could help us, let's go into free agency and grab one? Because they were in the running for Adrian Peterson. They were trying to court Adrian Peterson to their team, and if Adrian Peterson came over to them, I would stamp it, put it in the mail, kiss of death right now. That's what I would have done. I would have kiss of death them right now if they had Adrian Peterson on their team, because on paper, it would be a Super Bowl team to me.
Yeah, and for those of you that means Ricky thinks they're going to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, for those of you who are new to the podcast, my kiss of death, whoever I pick to win the Super Bowl, does terribly. It was last year's kiss of death was the Cardinals, and I want to say the year before that was the Cowboys. So those were my last two kisses of death. You
also had the Chicago Bears.
The Bears. Yeah.
And that didn't work out well.
I had Bears Patriots that year, whatever year that was. But I also had the Ravens going far as well. But I would have, if Adrian Peterson would have signed with them, I would have sent it in the mail, kiss of death. I'm sorry, Giants fans. But they don't have that. So I think this season's going to be... There's still a chance. But I think this season's going to come down to, hey, you know what? We didn't have a running game. We need to get somebody who's experienced, because drafting guys, unless we're getting someone early on like the Cowboys did with Zeke, which they're not going to have because they're going to do well and make the playoffs this year. Spoiler alert, they're not going to have a high draft pick to do so.
Yeah, I completely agree. Unless they get one of those guys who's a steal, because the big thing they always talk about with a running back is you can get somebody later. You can get somebody later who's going to perform well. Jordan Howard was second best rookie running back last year behind Zeke, who was a phenomenal running back last year. And, not a first-round guy. So you can get somebody later. That's okay. You can pull it off. Is Wayne Gallman that guy? I don't know, because there's a huge mess of running backs here.
I kind of want him to be. I do, because it's one of those things where I look at it and I like Wayne Gallman last year for Clemson, and I kind of, maybe it's just me pulling for him this year in the kind of crop of running backs that we see when it comes to the Giants and what they are. But kind of the last thing I am thinking about for this kind of preview is we asked the question of, can they dethrone the Cowboys? The last thing I will ask you is, this year, let's say, based off of, because our predictions could be anything, let's say they do make the playoffs. If they make the playoffs as the wild card like they did last year, do you see this team being another one and done? Or on paper, because that's all it is right now in the previews, do you see this team with the additions that they made being able to win a game or two, maybe three or four in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, well, if they can win 4 games, that'd be amazing, right?
That's what I'm saying.
I think that they...
You're getting it, Mark. You're catching
I got you. I think this team here on paper, which is, like you're saying, that's all we have right now is the paper. They, without a doubt, are Super Bowl competitors because they've got one of the better defenses. This defense wasn't letting you score points, and that's important because, especially last year, they needed it. If they can get better production in the run game to help the passing game, which they've got awesome weapons, some of the best weapons in the NFL, there's no reason why this team shouldn't give up one of the fewest points and score one of the highest points. It doesn't get any better than that.
Well, and the one thing that I have to double check really quick, because I want to say I pseudo-kissed of death this team last year, because we did our playoff predictions for not just the regular season, but we did them before the playoffs.
Yeah.
I believe in my playoff predictions, my Super Bowl was Giants and Patriots.
I think it was.
And when the Giants meet the Patriots, who are you going to pick? The Giants.
Yeah.
So maybe a little pseudo kiss of death that just popped in to my head. But any last thoughts that you think we didn't touch on before we move on to the last year division champion Dallas Cowboys?
No, I mean, I just hope to see a bounce back from Eli Manning. I mean, his last really rough year, he followed it up with 2 really good years. So, hey, maybe.
Well, this is where we turn the conversation on to you guys. Let us know down below in the comment section, what are you guys thinking this season for the Giants? How are they going to do? What players are you expecting to see big seasons out of? And really for this one, I want to know from Giants fans, what percentage do you put the Giants winning the division over really the Cowboys this year and being the NFC Division champions? Let us know down below in the comment section.